NVIDIA does not want you to game anymore. They want you to go outside and get some fresh air because for the first time in 30 years, the company is not going to be releasing a consumer-grade gaming GPU for you. We're talking not a refresh of an existing card, not a super card, nothing being released for consumers this year. But when you look at the numbers, you kind of understand why they don't care. So let me show you what 3 decades of your loyalty gets you from NVIDIA. The information reports, they have 2 credible insider sources in the know. We've been hearing rumblings about this for at least 2 quarters now, but now we have pretty credible evidence of this. And the information reports that those 2 sources are saying they are not going to be releasing any new consumer cards in 2026. That is not in the plan for NVIDIA. You might ask about the planned RTX 50 series refresh. That's codenamed Kicker. Design was completed on that, but it's shelved indefinitely. And if you're hoping for a future card to solve those issues, the RTX 60 series, that's the Rubin architecture, just got pushed from late 2027 mass production to 2028. The source on that is from a PC Gamer article. NVIDIA survives the crypto boom, the pandemic, and every supply chain crisis that our current president has caused. But this time, Oracle, AWS, they came along with big bags of money, and all of a sudden, they are not interested in giving you a gaming graphics card. They do not care about PC gamers anymore. Let's hear it straight from the horse's mouth, though. NVIDIA's response, quote, "Demand for GeForce RTX GPUs is strong, and memory supply is constrained. We continue to ship all GeForce SKUs," end quote. So the translation there to gamers is get effed if we're able to buy memory to build these cards. They're going to the tech elite in their data centers. They're not going to you. To an extent, they don't really have a choice. NVIDIA is down bad right now, and everyone on Wall Street is watching. So if we look at their Q3 results, which this quarter ended in October 2025, $57 billion total revenue. 51.2 billion of that, which is about 90%, coming from data centers. Gaming, a measly 4.3 billion, which is 7.5%. This is a rounding error to a company of that size. And really, if they have to choose between one of the two to appease their shareholders, they're of course going to start making more for the data centers and less for the gamers. These numbers hold largely steady for their full fiscal year in 2025. For the full profits in 2025, data center, 115.2 billion. That dropped a little bit to 88.3% of their total revenue. Gaming, 11.35 billion. That's 8.7%. So gaming grew 9%, but data center grew 142%. So if you're a business guy, the decision is obvious. I mean, essentially, NVIDIA is a $200 billion plus a year company where their gaming revenue is now like a rounding error. Like it doesn't matter as a percentage of their profits. I've been in this position as an engineering director before, and it's really, really difficult. If you have constrained spend, constrained resources coming down from the top, you need to make some hard decisions about where to apportion those that's going to do the best thing for the company. And right now, NVIDIA is squeezed bad. They were already short on TSMC wafers. That's the company that's making a lot of the primitives that go in these NVIDIA chips. And now, as you know, with Micron's pivot to data centers, RAM is just squeezed everywhere. It's very, very hard to get memory, and the price of memory has gone up, which is also essential for their cards. And if you're really controlling the lever of spend, if you're in that position in business at NVIDIA, basically you got one business unit, gaming, which is making a dime on every dollar. And then you have one that is just blowing up in year over year growth, which is data center expansion. And that's making 90 cents on the dollar. So obviously you're going to do more of what works. We can debate about whether this is a good long-term strategy, but in the moment, accounting wise, this just makes sense for them. And I should caution you, this is not a temporary pivot. NVIDIA is now telling you what business line they are involved in, that they are all in on. And it is not gaming. They do not care about gaming anymore. The reason they can't make gaming GPUs anymore, even if they wanted to, has a name. And that name is Project Stargate. It's an OpenAI project that just ate 40% of the world's RAM supply. This kicked off back in October 2025. OpenAI signs a deal with Samsung and SK Hynix for 900,000 DRAM wafers per month. That's roughly 40% of the global output for Stargate. If you're one of these memory companies like Samsung, You can make a number of different types of memory chips. And so one of the common ones is DRAM. But what NVIDIA really requires is HBM, which is high bandwidth memory. And so high bandwidth memory on a raw materials basis takes more to produce. It requires about 3 times the amount of silicon per bit versus conventional DRAM. So the only heuristic you need to keep in your head is every unit of high bandwidth memory that gets created from one of these companies is 3 RAM sticks that don't get created from one of those companies. The shot across the bow for this one was when Micron exited the consumer RAM business, which, by the way, their stock mooned after they did that. Shareholders loved it. They produced a consumer brand of RAM called Crucial. You might have seen it at a Micro Center or be familiar with it if you've built your own PC. And that no longer exists for consumer anymore. And there aren't a lot of these RAM producers either. So that's a big hit. Samsung is now also starting to bend the knee towards the data centers. They are filling only 70% of their DRAM backlogs. So the DRAM prices are up 172% through 2025. Projections coming out of the firm TrendForce project 50 to 55% DRAM price increases in Q1 2026 alone, which is unprecedented. Straight from the horse's mouth, the Micron VP says, quote, "We're sold out for 2026. The subtext of that, we're sold out for you. We are not sold out if Oracle or Amazon come knocking or NVIDIA wants some of this, but we are, for you, we don't got any. We're out." So this isn't just an NVIDIA problem. This is affecting the price of virtually everything computing that uses RAM or some kind of memory in that lane. But NVIDIA made a choice about who gets what's left. It gets way worse than this. It's not that NVIDIA is just not launching any new cards. They are now pulling existing stock as well. So they're like one step away from wanting to enter your home and saying, "Open up your gaming PC, citizen. I need that GPU. Jeff Bezos needs your GPU." And if you think I'm nutty, there's a couple of examples. Let's go through a couple of examples of this really happening. So the RTX 5070 Ti card, Asus placed it into end-of-life status in January. They can't source the GPUs from NVIDIA. And now we have confirmation that retailers can't restock it. And these firms are always doing damage control. So you have Asus and NVIDIA. They issued some PR denials saying that the card was, quote, "not discontinued," but Hardware Unboxed reports, quote, "whether or not AIBs actually receive enough supply to justify continued production is another question." So it's discontinued. The RTX 5060 Ti 16 gigabyte variant is also facing end of life. NVIDIA is shifting those to 8 gigabyte variants. So even if you're able to buy one of the NVIDIA cards, you are only allowed to have 8 gigabytes, and you cannot have more gigabytes of memory. Then you might self-host your own LLMs and do things that we don't want you to do. The price hike is absurd. The RTX 5090 prices are hitting $5,000. The RTX 5070 Ti jumped from $730 to over $830 in weeks. And boy, I am really kicking myself. I just parted out my gaming PC a little while ago. I sold a 4090 card. I'm not even going to say, but I'm losing sleep over that sale. And side note, you'll see it in everything. I have an Xbox back there. I've been big on Steam Deck lately, and I've been thinking about selling the Xbox. I bought that Xbox maybe 5 years ago. I went on Craigslist. I went on eBay to see what's the going rate. What do I sell this thing for? I can sell it for as much as I bought it for 5 years ago. That is unheard of. I know that's not NVIDIA, but this speaks to this broader trend going on in the industry. Production has reportedly been slashed for NVIDIA cards by 15 to 20%. Some reports are saying up to 40%. Chinese labs are hacking and repurposing these cards, specifically the RTX 5080 and the 5070 Ti. They're turning them into blower-style AI server cards, which is further draining an already stressed supply. The only 16 gigabyte GeForce card NVIDIA will reliably ship is the $1,300+ RTX 5080, which, as I've mentioned before, for running a large language model locally, you're really going to want at minimum 24 gigabytes. So you can't even run your models on these. If you're waiting for GPU prices to come down, I've seen some of you in the comments about what does this mean for RAM prices? What does this mean for GPU prices? I got to give you some hard news, man. They are not going down. These will get more expensive for the foreseeable future. And that's if you can source them. You probably aren't even going to be able to find graphics cards that you can buy if you're not a data center. Like I mentioned, no RTX 50 series Super in 2026. That's out. The 60 series, not until 2028 for mass production. That's a potential 3-year gap between major GPU architectures, GPU releases. That's longer than most gaming laptop life cycles. So you're going to have these burning out and you're not going to be able to replace them from the manufacturer by buying a new one. You could maybe buy a gimped one from them, which isn't as good, or you could go on the secondary market and pay a boatload of money to try to get a used one. If you're like me and you're hoping that capitalism saves the day, unfortunately, not really how it works in this industry. DRAM, building it, putting it together, having the factories, sourcing the materials, it's a really complex problem. And so if you're hoping for, some grassroots vendor to spin up and start making homespun RAM for consumers only and not for data centers, even if that were so, it's going to take them 3 years to spin up a plant and get up to mass production. So no help is coming anytime soon. And it looks like in the come up of a century, AMD and Intel are actually going to benefit from this, not because they make any good product in this lane. Sorry, AMD fanboys, if you're in the comments, but their stuff is going to be available. You can buy it. So suddenly an AMD Radeon, while you may have turned your nose up at it before, it's starting to look pretty attractive given the desert that we're wandering through. And so my advice would be, if you need a GPU, spend 2x, 3x the cost to get it now, because at least they're still viable and people are still selling them. I mean, these things are either going to go for the price of a decent used car or just not be available, I think, 3 to 6 months from now. This is really just starting to ramp up, and it's going to get bad if you're trying to get a graphics card. The real kicker is going to be the NVIDIA Q4 earnings. That's coming up on February 25th. We're going to cover it on this channel live or just after the earnings. And here are a couple of the things that I'm watching for to prep you if you're tuning into that earnings call. First is going to be the Wall Street consensus. How do they do on profits? So Wall Street consensus is around 65.5 billion revenue for Q4, which brings the full fiscal 2026 to 213 billion. We're also going to be watching for the gaming segment sentiment. What is the year-over-year growth? Compare that to the data center profit year-over-year growth. We'll also be looking for any future guidance on the GeForce roadmap, if they talk about it at all. And even more broadly, whether Jensen acknowledges the shortage for consumer GPUs or if he just ignores it entirely. And honestly, if I was Jensen's PR person, I would say just don't even talk about it, because you are going to F it up if you talk about it. The media is going to tear you apart. Dr. J channel is going to do a whole video on how you botched your assessment of the gaming sector. So just don't even talk about it. If you want to track the actual money behind the AI boom, not just the hype and the tech giant sponsored media covering a lot of this, I'm putting together a free AI spending tracker. You can subscribe to my newsletter. It's in the video description. You will be the first to get that when it comes out. Subscribe, hit the bell to be notified. You want to be the first to know after those NVIDIA earnings come out what the teardown is. We will have that here. As always, bring in the facts. Thank you so much for watching.